Morning, folks. So back in June, I had a couple of guys stop by named Keith and Sherman. They're from back east someplace. I can't remember exactly where, but anyway, they were out this way and they stopped to say hi, which was kind of a fun visit. And Keith gave me this TS-85 Beaver trap. And they're not Catch Brothers is what it's stamped on there. I'm not sure exactly who actually makes this trap, but they're it's big. It's a good sized trap. Be a good wolf trap, except for it's not really strong enough from what I've been told. So I bought some springs. I bought an extra set of springs from Catch Brothers, and I'm going to 4-coil this. They'll go something like that. Oops, goes up underneath here. But anyhow, first thing I need to do is laminate the jaws and cut a gap in here. I like the what do they call them? Offset jaws. I'm not really sure why they call them offset, because they're not offset. To me, offset means they're staggered. They're not. They've just got a gap in there, and what that does is it's designed to not close all the way on their foot and not do any damage. So anyway, first thing I'm going to do is that. Okay, I got that all cut out. It took several passes with a cutoff wheel and try to keep it as evenly as I can. It's probably a little bit more than 1/4 inch. It might be about 1/4 inch, I guess. But next I need to laminate the jaws. And this came out of an old horse trailer I bought years ago. It was part of the feed bunk, and I saved it because stuff like this is always handy. So I'll cut a couple of strips here and weld them on just like that. Okay, since this is a dogless trap, for those of you that aren't trappers, a trigger dog usually is a piece that flips over right here. It comes up and over the jaw and holds onto the pan this way. This one has a little bitty tab that hooks to the edge of the jaw here. And cutting that gap in there is going to raise that pan. This trap is pretty well designed. It has a, let's see, that might go off. It has an adjustment here, so I can move this in and out, and that'll lower that pan back where it needs to be. For now, I'm not too worried about that. I'll tune that up last. But the two things I need to do next is to take this swivel from here and put it in the center. Then I got some chain I want to add, and I have a shock spring there also. One thing I gotta quit doing, it's kind of a bad habit. I pick them up by the spring lever. This one, look how big that hole is. If you got your thumb in there and that thing went off, it's gonna slam it clear up here. I'll show you. Your thumb would be in there. Ooh boy, would that hurt. And getting it open again is going to be a lot of fun too. Had this chunk of pipe here just for this, I forgot about that. Okay, so now I can grind that without it getting me. These need to be cleaned up a little bit more, but that's basically what I'm looking for. The insides are smooth. Not real smooth. I gotta polish that a little bit with a sanding wheel. Now this right here, I left it fairly square for the dog to catch on, or that little notch. I guess you'd call it a dog. But the rest of these are pretty rounded. I need to, like I say, I need to clean them up a little bit with a file to keep them from being sharp. But next thing I want to do is tack weld these on here like that to extend these spring levers, or spring pins, I guess you'd call them. So I have a little bit more room, and I can put a plate across here to keep it from coming off. Okay, got those on there. Now these will go basically like that. This will have to go over here though, of course. So it's going to be a little bit of a job to get those on, but it shouldn't be too bad. Taking that pan off might actually be the easiest thing to do. Okay, now to try to put the springs back on. Or not back on, the new springs. Okay, those are on there. Man, that's stout now. Tell you what, that made that thing awful stout. I can't set it without tools now, which is kind of what I wanted, but man, it is tight. Okay, so next thing I need to do is change this. That swivel, I don't trust that swivel for wolves. Nothing's welded for one thing, and it's too small, and I like them to be center swiveled. So I'll cut this off and build a new one for over here. This is going to be the base of the trap. This D-ring will go to the bottom of the trap. Then I got roughly 7-8 inches of chain, a really heavy duty swivel. It didn't need to be that heavy, but I had it, so I went ahead and used it. And then this big old heavy chain here, this stuff is pretty darn stout. And you know, the thing of it is, when you're rigging up traps like this, you should set them up. Here's a helicopter coming. You should set them up so that it'll hold the biggest animal that you're likely to catch, which would be a bear. I don't want to catch a bear. They're not legal to keep in Idaho. I can't legally do it, and I have to let them go. But I don't want something flimsy. It looks like life flight. Always got to wonder which one of my friends is leaving today. Anyway, you don't want something flimsy that'll break and lose your chain and stay on the animal's foot and cause all sorts of troubles. So you want it to be able to hold the biggest critter you can catch, and unfortunately that's bears. This trap is going to be stout enough and big enough. I'm not going to set this until I'm sure the bears are asleep. And that thing, that's a big trap. But anyway, just in the off chance that I do catch one, it's got to be stout. Be the base plate to keep the springs and everything all spaced right. Oh, I think I'm done. Got the jaws laminated. This thing here, it keeps the springs from getting bent out or anything. Without that, I could see the chain hooking on one of these posts and pulling it funny. So that's all done. You can't do it now. It's a solid frame. Got my center swivel moved from the end to the middle. Got a big heavy duty swivel on there. Need to find another one, put it down a little bit further. I like kind of a long chain, you know. They say that a lot of times you don't want a long chain because I guess what could happen is the critter makes a run at it, and then when they hit the end it pops them out. I don't know. I've never really seen that happen. I suppose it does if they're not caught good. But if it's a longer chain, they have less leverage to whatever it is you have it tied off on. But also, you don't have to use that long chain. If you can stake it somewhere closer, then that's fine too. You just go to the middle of the chain instead of the far end. But I don't know, everybody's got different ideas. With a longer chain, I can put a drag on there if I want to. I'm not real fond of drags. A lot of people use them, but what happens if you don't have them hooked real good and they run off somewhere and they get tangled up and then they get out? You're probably never going to find that trap again. And one of the game wardens here told me that he helped a guy get a mountain lion out of the top of a tree that was on a drag that somebody caught in a wolf trap. And that doesn't sound, I mean, it sounds exciting, but it doesn't sound like a lot of fun. So anyway, let's set this thing and see what it looks like. Because I put that gap in the jaws, that changed the angle slightly. It's not going to lay as flat as it did. But that's okay too. I can bed it just a little bit differently. And to finish this off, I added a shock spring in there. What that does is this will compress until it hits the end of this chain loop and give it a little bit of a give so it's not such a solid hit when they hit the end of it. And put a ring on it. That's nice because you can do like that and go around a log or something before you tie it to it. It makes it a lot more solid. So that trap's finished. TS-85. It ought to work. I'm going to need to make a set of setting tools for this trap. Before, I could easily set it by hand. Now this thing is pretty darn stout, but a pair of crescent wrenches will usually do the trick. Why, that thing is strong. That is a big trap. Let's see what this thing measures here. Okay, so to be legal in Idaho, the inside jaw spread can't be over 9 inches. And this is 8 1/8 and 1/8, it looks like. Anyway, this direction it is 8.5 inches. So it's still Idaho legal. It's big. It's a strong trap now with those 4 coils on it. What I was saying about this is this little tab here. That's what holds it open. And because it's a little bit lower than it was before, when you look at that, it's not level. This side over here sits up just a little bit higher than the other side. But I can adjust that with the dirt and stuff, so it's not really that big of a deal. I'd rather it set level, but it doesn't. So this thing, move this down a little. I would like that to click too, so that it, you know where it needs to be to set. I might file a little notch in there to make it do that, but it's a pretty darn stout trap. Cool. One more for the trap line. And that one, I think, it might be a little stronger than those 750s. I don't know, MB 750s. It feels like it might be, but it might come up through the snow a little better too. I don't know. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and Birds over there fighting. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Keith, for this trap. It's a pretty neat one. It was kind of a lot of effort to modify it, but I think it's going to be worthwhile. See ya.